one thing about John, he would use the environment. If he saw, like the scene where we just jumped out and saw this ship along the dock, this docked along the pier, and he said, just jump out, run as fast as you can along the ship, and I'm running and running. I said, you know what? My legs are buckling. I'm literally going to crash down here. Teeth are going to go, jaw, face. I'm just going to be ground down to this flat-faced image. Please. And I just barely made it. As John had me, he would have me run and jump park benches and down streets, and people are throwing things at me. Like when I had the orange thrown at me, and these people had no idea who I was. I was just some strange alien invader in a well-worn, tattered, baggy, incredibly ugly sweatsuit running through their neighborhood, you know, and they're like throwing things at me. And we kind of like made it work, but actually, like I thought they were trying to hit me with the orange. There was a kind of a lot of injuries on the set. I remember I was doing running up and down the steps. Originally, I was supposed to run up and down the steps with butt kiss to show how strong Rocky had become. The first time he could barely get up the steps, and then I started picking up the dog. And halfway up the steps, I said, "This is a bad idea." The dog weighed about 135 pounds. I said, "And there's no way I can run gracefully up the steps." More or less, I couldn't even stagger up the steps. So the dog was definitely cut out. But in the meantime, I had gotten a wicked case of shin splints, which is an old injury I had gotten from playing high school football. And then when I was hitting the meat, I thought, oh, this would be an interesting visual, hitting the meat. Well, I don't know if anyone's hit a bull lately. They're hard. They're real hard. So all my knuckles were flattened out. They just became, I guess, kind of like, well, I don't know what they're good for anymore. I guess, you know, kind of like a table leg now. They're pretty flat. They're pretty even. They really don't function as a hand much anymore. But these are all somewhat of the memories of, and the broken finger that I was using with Adrian. I said, okay, I'll just like take all the injuries in the movie and somehow work it in. Also in the movie, there was we couldn't afford many people, so I tried to get as much help from friends, from my brother who plays a street corner singer, and my father who's a bell ringer. As I said, my dog is in it. Even my wife, my first wife, was the set photographer. But I think she shot a total of maybe 100 pictures because the budget was really, really tight. And actually, it was probably the best set photographer I've had in a long time because all those pictures are great. Talia Shire was also a last-minute choice because we just couldn't find the right person, and then she came in, and it was, I think, the same night as Carl Weathers. I think it was. And she came in, and we just read, and I felt the earth move. I really felt a tremendous vitality and kinship. I mean, I loved her. I really, really loved her. I just loved the way she looked and the way her hair fell, and this timid, fragile creature. I said, just incredible, and the perfect voice. So when we were going to do Rocky meets her, and he just talks to her, and he sees a beauty in her that no one else sees because everyone has something to do. Rocky really has nothing to do. So he moves at a much slower pace, and he observes, and he sees things that other people don't see. So he's trying to bring her out because I guess he feels that she's probably the only one who's worse off than he is. So he's feeling kind of like a little protective towards her. And the sequence where we're supposed to go ice skating, originally that was written for 300 extras, and it was a big deal. Well, I show up on the set. They said, we have a slight change in plans. We have one extra. I said, interesting. And I said, well, I have an interesting thing to tell you, too. I don't ice skate. I don't know why I wrote it, but I thought it'd be interesting. So here we are with an empty arena, and I don't really skate at all. So I decided I was going to run on ice, and she says she skates, but if you watch her ankles are falling in, and she's barely holding on, and Rocky's trying to explain his life, looking cool, and he looks like so foolish, but she doesn't care. And where they really come together at that moment when he goes, you know, my father said I wasn't born with much of a brain. He goes, my mother, she says sort of the same thing. He says, you weren't born with much of a body, so you better start developing your brain. It's like, oh, these two people are two halves that absolutely need to fit together. You know, they are really on the same page. Then he walks her home.
I think we make a real sharp couple of coconuts. I'm done with your shot. What do you think?
And I'm starting to like realize that this is the key to the film. This is the heartbeat. The whole movie is going to be based on the discovery of these two people, the love. She goes upstairs, and now she's like terrified because this is not exactly what you call a swinging bachelor apartment. And the moment when he gets her to that door, all of a sudden the whole facade changes. He no longer looks like this terrifying guy. He goes, you know, would you take off your glasses? And she really looks, if you ever watch that scene closely, you'll never see better responding by an actress to an awakening inside of like really feeling like someone truly loves her. That it's like she's dying. She has never felt this before. And coming from this man who is, you know, this physical kind of specimen, the last kind of guy she ever imagined herself being with, it just, I mean, I disappear in that scene. She is just off the chart.
You don't have to kiss me back if you don't want. I don't want to kiss you.
And I knew, I said, as soon as I kiss her, I'm going to be in a hospital bed. But it's okay. I knew I was going to have it. He's like, here comes the flu. And anyway, I come together and I kiss her and we go down to the floor. I don't know if I could ever have a scene that had more love that I'll ever do in it. And even though I got the cold, I'm over it, Talia. It's okay. And I couldn't have come up with a better Apollo Creed than Carl Weathers. He was absolutely magnificent on his feet, an amazing body, the perfect voice, and he had this bearing that actually Carl came in. We were going to use Ken Norton, and Ken Norton goes, well, no, I'm going to go to the ABC Superstar competition. It fell out like 2 nights before. I said, oh boy. I tell you, I really believe in divine intervention sometimes, because he walks in and he starts to audition and he's doing the lines well, and then he gets up and he starts to box with me a little bit, and he bangs 2 or 3 off my head. I said, geez, this guy he really doesn't care if he gets the part, does he? I mean, he's putting lumps on my forehead and he's really into it. Then he sits back down and he goes, Mr. Avildsen, I could do much better if you had a real actor reading with me. He goes, well, Carl, that's Rocky. That's the guy who wrote the script. He goes, oh, maybe he'll get better. You know what? I said, please, hire him. He's great. He's good. That's exactly the attitude I wanted. He was fantastic, and he still is. I remember I was taking the ride across country because I couldn't afford an airline flight, and I'm on the train for like 3 days with the dog Budkiss. And Budkiss at that time had this terrible flatulence problem. He had this gas, and so he was gassing me across the entire country. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it got to the point where I said, Budkiss, one of us has got to go. No one's going to sit in the car with us. I couldn't breathe. I said, I'm trying to concentrate on the character of Rocky. Is this foreshadowing? Is this dog telling me exactly how this film is going to come out? A stinker? I don't know. I'll never forget. I was like, the train pulls into Arizona, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, I got to do it. So I picked up Budkiss in a bear hug and tried to get him to go to the bathroom. And people said, why are you squeezing your dog? I said, you don't understand. It's a matter of survival. And anyway, he didn't. And again, it was a very, very smelly experience until I got to Philadelphia. And then he gets right to the hotel where I'm staying and decides to let it go, and literally built